Doctor, in your opinion, with a reasonable degree of medical certainty, did Dr. Jones gain this weight of 125 pounds by eating? Plaintiff's counsel, I object, if Your Honor, please. The court overruled. The answer to that is yes. In your opinion, sir, with a reasonable degree of medical certainty, did he gain that weight by eating excessively, yes or no? I'd have to say, in this instance, yes. Excessively is a relative term, you know. Just a minute, you answered the question, and continuing to read from the record of Dr. James, it states that his EKG, what is an EKG? Electrocardiogram. Continuing to read, his EKG in my office is dramatically different today. It shows sinus tachycardia. Doctor, what is sinus tachycardia? Will you tell the members of the jury? It means that the heart is beating faster than it should. And that's not good. That's a bad thing to happen, correct? Plaintiff's counsel, objection. Counsel should not be testifying. I submit to Your Honor. The court, it is cross-examination, and wide latitude is always in order for cross-examination counsel. Plaintiff's counsel, I take an exception. The court, counsel, exceptions went out in the 19th century. Can sinus tachycardia be a bad thing to happen? Well, it's not normal, let me put it that way. And about with the man of the plaintiff's weight, just a moment, I have not asked you another question yet. All right. I suppose you are continuing to answer. It's a sign that things aren't usual. To call it dangerous depends on other circumstances. Would you say it is life-threatening? No, I wouldn't. But his heartbeat should be going slower. That's the point. And complicating things is that at this time he is weighing more than 450 pounds, as I recall. And the hospital record says occasional PCVs are also noted. What are PCVs? Can you tell us? Yes, I can tell you. That's premature ventricular contraction. And should that be there? As I said previously, I'm not a cardiologist, but they are extra beats that should not be there. You said before this was counterintelligent. Is that right? Yes, that is true. In fact, as I recall, on direct examination, you said he was not only morbidly obese, but super obese. Is that right? Yes, I did use that term. I called it super obese. And it says here in the nurse's notes, he is to limit his fluid intake as well as his food intake. Do you see that entry? Yes. His internist states in that note that the congestive heart failure is due to his obesity. Plaintiff's counsel, objection. He is testifying, Your Honor. Defendant's counsel, I will rephrase it. The court, then the objection is sustained. Next question. So when he was weighing 600 pounds back in August of 2004, Mr. Jones had congestive heart failure. Is that correct? Correct. And now he is going back to Dr. James, and he is down to 450 pounds, right? Plaintiff's counsel, objection, Your Honor. Time frame, he is saying now. It is not now. The court, the year is 2004. So Mr. Jones goes back to Dr. James, and he is 450 pounds, and Dr. Jones is noting changes and stating he has congestive heart failure. Is that correct? Correct. And then Dr. James is giving his opinion in a letter as follows. I impressed upon him the serious nature of his heart condition, which is due to his obesity. Do you have an opinion, sir, with a reasonable degree of medical certainty, having reviewed the case, as to whether or not his congestive heart failure was caused by his obesity, yes or no? No. Do you see that as a logical inference? Plaintiff's counsel, objection. The court, hold it. Speeded it up a little.
Yeah, that was too fast for me.
Good. Well, there was 180, and this is a former Supreme Court exam at 200. You got a little to go yet. Of course, I don't know how, you see, it depends on how heavy the medical is. If they want to put a heavy medical, it's hard. If it's no medical, it's easy. All right, let's take another one. I spelled tachycardia. T-A-C-H-Y.
Y. Okay.
And what does that mean, tachycardia?
They just said a heart rate that's too fast.
And what's one that's too slow? Bradycardia, B-R-A-D-Y. Okay. Ready? After taking about 4 steps, did you have an accident? Yes. Can you tell me how that accident happened? I slipped. I don't know. Do you want me to demonstrate? The court, use words to explain what happened. I was coming up out of the basement and I walked toward the door. And I don't recall if I pushed the door or pulled the door open, but I know my foot slipped as I was out in the yard. A security lady came running downstairs and she said, "You missed the step. I'm so sorry. We don't have a janitor or custodian to clean this mess up." That's what she said. Defense counsel, objection, hearsay. The court overruled. As you were walking toward the door to exit the building, was the door opened or closed? It was closed. Did you put either of your hands on the door to open it? No, I did not. Which hand did you do it with? The right hand. Did you have to open the door into yourself or did it push out? I don't remember. And you opened the door before you slipped? Just to be clear, Ms. Bain, I am trying to get the sequence. I am trying to think too. I am trying to remember. Yes, I did open the door. Yes, I opened the door. Well, was your hand still on the door at the time that you slipped? No. And you had taken your hand off the door? Defense counsel, objection if the court please. Bleeding. The court, sustained. Don't bleed. After taking your hand off the door, did you take any further steps before slipping? No. Did you slip immediately after you let go of the door? I opened the door, and as I was walking to the exit, what is it? Defendant's counsel, a mat. The witness, that's right, a mat, when I slipped. Did your foot slip on the mat? Is that what you are saying? Or are you saying something else? It slipped on the tile before the saddle. When you slipped, did your body go forward or did it go backward or somewhere else? It went forward. Then your body went forward. Did it go out of the building? Yes, it did. Where did your body land? In the rear yard. Are there any steps between the yard and the doormat? Yes, there are 2 wide, thick steps and concrete. Did any part of your body come into contact with either of those 2 steps, the concrete steps, after you slipped? Yes. What part of your body did that? My right knee and my left ankle. Were you carrying anything at the time that you slipped? The package in my hand. Were you carrying anything else? No. Ms. Bennett, I am showing you what has been marked as defense exhibits for identification and ask if you recognize what is depicted in this photograph. Yes. What do you recognize it to be? The church where I fell, or school, I don't know. Is this the same layout of the seminary and school as it was on the day of your accident? Defense counsel, generally. Based on what you could see, yes. Ms. Bennett, the portal or entrance that you were using on the day of your accident to make the deliveries, was that the entrance to 4th Avenue? Yes. Defense counsel, indicating the lower part of the photo. Ms. Bennett, by looking at this photograph, Defense Exhibit B, were you able to see the location of which you parked your car? Yes. And that location, can you point to it at which you parked your car? Right here in front of this door, the exit, the entrance. Would it have been approximately where the white car is in the photograph, in this photograph? Yes. I am showing you what has been marked as Defense Exhibit A for identification, and I ask you if you recognize what is shown here. Yes. What is that? That's the entry point where I slipped down. The 2 brick steps that you were referring to earlier in your deposition, are these 2 cement steps? Yes. Is this layout the same as it was on the day of your accident? Yes. By looking at the Defendant's Exhibit A or Defendant's Exhibit B, are you able to see the tile floor on which you slipped? Yes. And from that picture? Yes. Do you have any photographic depiction that shows the terrazzo floor on which you slipped? No, I don't. Do you know if anyone has any photograph of the tile floor on which you slipped? No. Do you know who took either of the two photographs in front of you? Yes. Who took them? My sister. Patricia Kramer? Yes. When did she take them? I don't recall. Last year. I don't know the date or anything, but I believe it was last year. Were you with her when the photos were taken? Yeah, no. How did you know that they were taken? Because I told her what happened. Was it?
It's okay.
What reason?
Computer crashed again.
Oh, okay.
I gotta replace this computer.
I would say. I mean, maybe you could take mine. Or do I need that one?
You don't need it, but
So take it.
I have a second one here.
So should I give that one to Curtis?
Which, the computer?
Yeah, because I'm not using the old one.
Yeah, but you keep saying you want to use real time. You're gonna need that computer.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point is for him to do real time.
Let me go to the bathroom. Hold on.
All right. Okay,
Still no word from Curtis, right?
ready? Can you hold out?
Yeah, I am hungry. So, yeah, I can pull out that.
The list.
Sorry, I'm not ready. Stupid. Okay, I'm ready.
The list of outrages coming out of the House is long, but the way the Republicans are trying to hijack the $260 billion transportation bill defies belief. This bill is so uniquely terrible that it might not command a majority when it comes to a floor vote, possibly next week, despite Speaker John Boehner's imprimatur. But betting on rationality with this crew is always a long shot. Here is a brief and by no means exhaustive list of the bill's many defects. It would make financing for mass transit much less certain, but more vulnerable, by ending a 30-year agreement that guaranteed mass transit a 1/5 share of the fuel taxes and other user fees in the Highway Trust Fund. Instead, it would compete annually with other programs. It would open nearly all of America's coastal waters to oil and gas drilling, including environmentally fragile areas that have long been off limits. The ostensible purpose is to raise revenue to help make up what has become an annual shortfall for transportation financing. But it is really just one more attempt to promulgate the Republicans' drill now, drill everywhere agenda and the interests of their industry patrons. It would demolish significant environmental protections by imposing arbitrary deadlines on legally mandatory environmental reviews of proposed road and highway projects, and by ceding to state highway agencies the authority to decide whether such reviews should occur. It would demolish significant environmental protections by imposing arbitrary deadlines on legally mandated environmental reviews of proposed road and highway projects, and by ceding to state highway agencies the authority to decide whether such reviews should occur. In 1982, with President Ronald Reagan's blessing, Congress agreed to apportion 80% of the Highway Trust Fund revenues to highways, bridges, and tunnels, and 20% to subways, bus lines, and other forms of mass transit. In 2010, this meant around $32 billion in highways, bridges, and so on, and $8 billion for mass transit. The House bill would direct all the trust fund money to roads and bridges. It would authorize a one-time payment of $40 billion over 5 years for all the other transportation programs, including mass transit and small initiatives to improve air quality and ease congestion. That means that mass transit would have to struggle with others for yearly appropriations and would almost certainly get less than the $8 billion it received in 2010. Where that $40 billion will come from is also unclear. The idea that oil revenues from increased drilling will provide it is delusional. Even if new leases are rushed through, oil will not begin to flow for years, and neither will the royalties. In many cases, none of this is good news for urban transit systems, including New York City's Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which in 2010 alone received about $1 billion from the trust fund. Ray LaHood, the Transportation Secretary, rightly calls this the worst transportation bill he has seen in 35 years of public service. Mr. Boehner is even beginning to hear from budget-conscious conservatives who believe that relying on user fees is the most fiscally responsible way to pay for all transportation programs. Perhaps the House Speaker will listen to these warnings and send the bill back to the relevant committees for the wholesale revision it needs. If he does not, and it passes, then the Senate must hang its head in shame. A stubborn standoff is playing out this week between a nearly bankrupt Greece and the wrong-headed European partners it needs to pay its bills. The outcome is, sadly, foreordained. Greece will have to give to Europe still most of what it wants. It cannot survive, although Europe's money, even if it chokes on Europe's conditions. By now, Europe's leaders should know the approach will not work. Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany, the main architect of Europe's disastrous mismanagement of the Eurozone debt crisis, can keep pretending that harsher doses of fiscal austerity will restore Greece and Europe's other troubled debtors to economic health. Or she can recognize that only a combination of greater fiscal breathing room and pro-growth reforms like opening up closed labor markets, breaking up state monopolies, and streamlining bureaucrats can achieve the desired result. But slashing wages, jobs, and public spending across the board, as Europe demands, will only deepen the recession.
It's a little too much.
Too slow?
No, too fast.
Too fast? It was 140.